Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to this great event. Actually, when I received the invitation, I knew I will meet some of my friends here, my colleagues, some VIPs, and also my students and former students. I'm very, very pleased to see some of my students who became leaders now. And this is exactly what I wanted to talk about in this talk. When I received this invitation, I tried to think about what I'm going to say. And I said, okay, maybe I can share with you some of the challenges that I faced in my life as a student, as a researcher. And I overcome them through a very simple principle. And this principle is, if they can do it, I can do it. So if they have a brain and they did it, I can do it. If they have a brain and learned about research, learned about physics, math, I have also a brain and I can do it. And this is also translated by the very famous Arabic poem. Here it says, وَمَا اسْتَعْصَى عَلَى قَوْمٍ مَنَالٌ إِذَا الْإِقْدَامُ كَانَ لَهُمْ رِكَابًا. This means that nothing will be difficult for you as long as you have the courage and the will to do it. This is really my principle. It's a very, very simple principle. So today I'm going to share with you an experience of a young student who really grew up in, so a student who grew up in Morocco, Africa, studied in Morocco, Africa, and then traveled to Europe to study and also later work in several places in Europe. And then it ended up by working in an American university located in the Gulf. So it is really an intercontinental journey where I faced several challenges, but also I overcome them through this very simple principle. If they have a brain, I also have a brain. So everything started in 1988 when I got my baccalaureate from Morocco. And at that time, the only possibility for us is to do either physics, math, chemistry, biology, geology as a scientist, if you want to become a scientist. So there was no other alternative. So I registered into a university in the north of Morocco, and I got accepted. And then in the summer, before starting the courses, I met two friends who used to study at that time in France. And one of them asked me, what did you do? I said, well, I applied for this university in the north of Morocco. I got accepted. I'm going to do physics and math. So basically physics, but also math. So because I wanted to be a scientist. So he said, just forget about it. You will not make it because last year, 1,500 students got accepted in the first year of that university in the same discipline. Can you guess how many passed? What is the success rate? What was the success rate? Can you guess? So only 250 people or students make it in the first year. So the success rate is 17 to 20%. That was very low. Now, I had at that time two options, either to give up and do something else or to go ahead. But at that time, I already developed this very simple principle. Well, if they have a brain and they succeeded, I could pass. I could do it also. So yes, I went ahead. And because coming from a modest family, we could not afford to go to that city and get my own apartment or rent an apartment. So I have 4 other friends. We went together, we rent this apartment, and we were in the first year. So at the end of the year, it's a sad story. I was the only one who passed within those 5, which means we kept this ratio for 20%. So that learned me a lot. And then started another challenge. When I got my master in physics, actually it's a maîtrise, they call it in French, maîtrise, and then I went to Belgium. At that time, when I went to Belgium, I got accepted in a master in physics. And among the courses, there was a course in signal processing and automatic theory, control theory. Now, at that time, the teacher used to teach at the course, and at the end of the course, he used to tell us, okay, now you have 10 minutes or 15 minutes to write a small computing program in a programming language like Pascal or MATLAB to just apply what you have just learned. But at that time, I haven't got any experience with computers. I did not even know how to power on a computer. I had not seen a computer in a real life before. And then again, I was facing with this challenge. Either I give up, or I try to learn this programming language, but the problem, I haven't got access to the computer, but I needed time. So I managed with the professor to postpone my exam for a few months, and then I went for vacation for 1 month to Morocco. And in order to study the language, I borrowed a famous book in French, Le Langage de Programmation Pascal. Actually, it's a programming language, Pascal programming language book. And as I told you, I don't have access, while I'm in Morocco, I don't have access to a computer, so I have to read this book to learn the programming language, to write my own programs, and not only that, to act as a compiler debugger. So I used to write by hand my programs. And as you know, a computer executes instructions one by one. So I used to write during vacation my programs and execute them in my mind, line by line, instruction by instruction, to see if I'm right or wrong. And I collected, or I wrote some 50 programs, and then I came back to Belgium. At Belgium, I came back to study, of course, after vacation. I had access to the computer room, but from 6 to 8 p.m. after class hours. Okay? Now, we had access to the top-notch computers at that time. And those are the top-notch computers at that time. If you remember them, those are Macintosh with 64 kilobyte RAM, up to 512 kilobyte RAM, hard drive. Now, I want you to compare it to your iPhone 7. So it's 2 million times, almost 2 million times in RAM, and almost 512. Actually, it's 1 million times in hard drive. So, but still, we could do a lot of things. So I learned the programming. For those who don't know of this these computers, this is the funny display that you get. And now the coccygeal that you see there, it's actually when you get a mistake. You see, when you get a mistake, you get this sign, and then it says that, oh, there is a semicolon that is missing. So this is a very, very enriching experience. I could learn programming by myself. I could use this principle that if they can do it, I can do it. If they have a brain to learn programming, I have a brain to learn programming. Not only that, but 12 years later, I became the head of the computing group at the High Energy Physics Institute in Brussels. This is the most prestigious institute in high energies. And actually, I was running the grid computing in Brussels, which is a very, very top position. So this is only started from learning programming by yourself and writing code by yourself. Okay, so I graduated, I got my master in physics. There was another challenge that was facing me when challenge and opportunity when my professor at the time proposed to me to work in a very prestigious project, the Large Hadron Collider at the European Organization for Nuclear Research. For those who don't know, the European Organization for Nuclear Research was founded in 1954 in the border between Switzerland and France. Actually, it spanned over the two countries. And you can see in the dashed lines, those are the borders between Switzerland and France. And the yellow line is actually the actual accelerator, which is the Large Hadron Collider. So if you want to see what is there, this is what is inside, 100 meters underground, and it is 27 kilometers of accelerating cavities to accelerate particles, to collide them, and to study the products of the collision So basically, we are trying to look at the creation of the universe, the conditions that reign the universe at the moment of the creation, the origin of mass, the origin of many, many other things. So, but if you want to be closer to the European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN, so this is where the World Wide Web was born. So actually, the World Wide Web was an idea from Tim Berners-Lee, where when he was working 1986 to 1989 at CERN, and he wanted to do something to connect high-energy physics together, so he started the World Wide Web, which became now our tool for daily life. Yeah, so the challenge was very high, and as you can see, we were building very, very big accelerator with very, very big detectors. But there were challenges, and one of the challenges is that the experimental area to which I was testing my detectors was on the French side, and the computer room was on the Swiss side. So when you go from the French side, so if you test your detector, the detector got data into the tape, and you need to read this tape. So the only way to read those tapes is to read them in the computer room. So I had to take the car and travel over the border, put the tape on the computer room, come back, and then fetch the data and see if the detector is working or not. Now, fortunately, there is no wall between Switzerland and France borders, so everything is clear, but that was a very, very challenging experience, and we were working on 24-hour basis. You only sleep 5 hours a day, and that for several months. So with thousands of scientists, we could build one of the biggest experiments that mankind has ever built. And this experiment started in 1992 with a 50-page letter of intent. It was just a proposal in 1992, 50 pages. But then, after 12 years, we could build this huge experiment. You can see in the middle of the experiment a man. And so this gives you the size of the experiment that we built during almost 15 years, with all perseverance from thousands and thousands of scientists. This was very, very challenging but very enriching experiment for me to work with people from all over the world. And this is what I'm trying to transmit to my students. Now, this experiment in 2012 discovered this particle for which we were waiting, the Higgs boson. This is a display from the monitor of this experiment that shows you the two signals that gives us the evidence of the existence of this particle that we were waiting for since 1961, the Higgs boson. And the idea is that this experiment was trying to solve this equation that was proposed in 1964 by several scientists, among them these two ones who got the Nobel Prize in 2013, thanks to the result that we discovered in 2012. Now, I am showing their picture for two reasons. I had the pleasure to meet Professor Peter Higgs on the right for the first time in 1998, where I was at that time PhD student. The other person, Professor François Englert, actually he is from the same university where I graduated, not only from the same university, from the physics department, the same department, from the same physics department and the same universities. So this reminded me the history of this great university from where I graduated, because 80 years before, the same university used to gather all these great scientists in what we called the Conseil Solvay, the Solvay councils. Solvay was an industrial, chemical industrial, and because he liked science, he used to put money to gather all these great scientists to discuss hot topics in science, especially in physics. So you can see in this picture, 1927, at the same university where I graduated, Einstein, Marie Curie, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, Laurent, Paul Dirac, Pauli, and many of them. Those who studied physics, or especially modern physics at Texas A&M Qatar, they would know all these names. Yes, so this is a very, very enriching experience and link that I have with. And another thing, one of the motivations I get, or I got, is that I read a lot. Especially I read a lot about the history of science and the history of those scientists. I can tell you the history of every one of them because I used to read. And here I'm giving you two examples of these great scientists from the region, so I choose them from the region. Najib Mahfoud. Najib Mahfoud, he's a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1988. I really like the sentence he put, he's in Arabic. He put a sentence that the biggest defeat of my life is being deprived of the pleasure of reading after visual impairment. So he used to read a lot, a lot, a lot. This is unfortunately what we don't do now, or at least the young generation, they don't do. Another example from the same region is that great scientist, Professor Abdus Salam. I had the pleasure to meet him in 1994, 1995. He was sick. He got a Nobel Prize in Physics in 1979. And you can see, he said, let us strive to provide equal opportunities to all so that they can engage in the creation of physics and science for the benefit of all mankind. I have a funny story that Professor Abdus Salam passed away on 20th of November, 1996. The 20th of November, 2000, later, four years later, exactly the same day, my twin daughters got born. So I somehow always celebrate the death of Abdus Salam, but also the birth of my daughters. So those inspired me to the point that I wrote a book about my story. The book is Scientific Diasporas, Moroccan Scientific Diasporas, where I put some of these motivations, some of the reasons why I got motivated to study science. So then I decided since then to transmit and transfer this motivation to my students. And if you can say now, the transferring motivation is not an easy way, but at least for me, if they can do it, I can do it, and my students also can do it, so you can do it. This can be done through two things, research and education. One of the joy I find is when I got this 1 by 1 square meter postcard from my student 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So some of them are here. I like this poster or this postcard. I put it in my office, but what I really like is this sentence in black. This sentence, they said, just when we thought we lost the potential to do good, you taught us that energy can be conserved. The reason I like it is that they made the connection between what I taught them and the real life. They made the connection that if you lose the potential, either you lose it because of friction, or you lose it because you are gaining in another way of energy. And they learned it. I really enjoy this, and that motivated me to do more and more, and that's why we are sending students to gain the same experience at CERN. Those are several students we sent to spend 1 or 2 months there. And this is because 20 years before, when my supervisor saw that we start to be demotivated, she used to send us for 1 month to CERN to charge our batteries and come back to do research. So at the end, my final message, I want to raise the bar. It's not only if they can do it, I can do it. Well, you have to do it. Do it or die. As long as you have it in mind, you have to do it. And I finish by this sentence. وَمَنْ لَا يُحِبُّ صُعُودَ الْجِبَالِ يَعِشْ أَبَدَ الدَّهْرِ بَيْنَ الْحُفَرِ, which means if you don't like climbing mountains, you will end up living in holes. Thank you very much.